Imagine the feeling. You start the game, you create your character, you take 3 steps out of some kind of a chapel, look at the enormous glowing tree on the horizon, and something immediately kills you. Welcome to Elden Ring. Your character, the Tarnished, arrives in the lands between, a world that has been completely destroyed. Everything that lives wants to kill you, the land is filled with mutated soldiers, fallen knights and gigantic bosses. But what happened here? Why is this world in such a terrible state, and who are the people you are supposed to defeat? Today, we're going to look at an event known as the Shattering, a massive civil war between the demigods that destroys everything Queen Marika had built. But to understand how this world ended, we first have to understand why it was once so perfect. Before everything fell apart, the lands between was ruled by Queen Marika the Eternal. She wasn't simply a ruler sitting on a throne, she was literally the vessel of the Elden Ring. But the Elden Ring isn't some piece of jewelry you can put on your finger. It is the physical manifestation of the very laws of reality in this world. It is made up of great runes. Whoever controls the Elden Ring essentially controls the laws of physics, life, nature and death. And Marika made one crucial decision that would secure her eternal rule. She removed the rune that represented death from the Elden Ring, the so-called Rune of Death, and sealed it away. She entrusted this rune to her half-brother Mariketh, her shadow-bound beast. Because of this single decision, natural death ceased to exist in the lands between. Nobody could die of old age, and gods and demigods became essentially immortal. When someone did fall in battle, their soul would simply return to the roots of the enormous glowing tree known as the Earth Tree, where it could be absorbed and reborn. This perfect close ecosystem of life without death became known as the Golden Order, and it became the foundation of the entire society. Everything seemed idyllic and eternal until an event known as the Night of the Black Knives. During this night, a group of female assassins managed to approach Marika unnoticed and steal a fragment of the Rune of Death. These assassins belonged to the same race as Marika herself, the Numen. And worst of all, the entire theft was orchestrated by the Marika's stepdaughter, Ranni the Witch, who refused to become a puppet of the higher powers. Armed with daggers infused with the power of death, the assassins infiltrated the capital of Lendl and murdered Marika's favorite and most perfect son, Godwyn the Golden. But this created a massive problem that would forever corrupt this world. Ranni had designed the ritual so that, at the exact same moment Godwyn died, she would kill herself as well. The Rune of Death was split in two, Ranni's physical body died, but her soul survived. With Godwyn, it was exactly the opposite. His soul was destroyed forever, while his immortal demigod body survived. He became an empty rotting shell, buried deep beneath the Earth Tree. His soulless body began mutating and spreading through the roots of the Earth Tree, releasing a corruption known as Deathroot, the source of those who live in death. Marika, pushed to the edge of sanity by the death of her son, and perhaps disgusted by the system she had created herself, did something unthinkable. She took her hammer and struck directly at the Elden Ring, attempting to shatter it. At the exact same moment, however, her other half, her male identity known as Radahn, who was a loyal servant of the Golden Order, took the same hammer and attempted to repair the ring. These two forces were fighting within a single body, but Marika's strike was devastating. By shattering the ring, the very laws of reality were thrown into chaos. Marika and Radahn were imprisoned by the higher power inside the Earth Tree as punishment for this enormous crime, and the fragments of the ring, known as Great Runes, scattered across the world where they were claimed by Marika's children, the demigods. But these Great Runes contained enormous power, and that power immediately corrupted their new owners. Every demigod, intoxicated by their newfound strength, suddenly believed they had the right to collect the remaining fragments of the ring and become the new ruler. And so, the bloodiest war in the history of the lands between began, the Shattering. It wasn't a single battle. It was a long and exhausting global conflict. Some of the demigods revealed their true nature almost immediately. Godrick, the weakest of Marika's descendants, fled the capital in panic, while disguised in women's clothing, hid inside Stonewall Castle and began grafting the limbs of his own soldiers onto his body in an attempt to gain at least some strength. Another demigod, Rykard, took his obsession with defeating the Golden Order even further. On Mount Gelmir, he allowed himself and his Great Rune to be devoured by a gigantic immortal serpent in order to gain power on a divine scale, but in the process he lost what remained of his humanity. Meanwhile, the capital of Ledel came under constant siege. The demigods attempted to break through its walls, while the others fought for power. One demigod remained loyal to the city and the Erdtree, Morgott, the Omen King, even though his own family and society despised him for being born an Omen. Morgott secretly led the defense of the capital and successfully repelled the attacks of his brothers and sisters. And then came the absolute climax of the war, the collision between two of the most powerful demigods to ever walk this world. General Radahn, master of gravity magic, commanding a massive army, and his half-sister Malenia the Severed, who had never known defeat. Their armies met in the region of Caelid, and their battle reached a complete stalemate. Neither was capable of definitively killing the other and claiming their Great Rune. Radahn hammered Malenia with his great swords until she was forced to reach the absolute bottom of her power. In order to break the stalemate, Malenia unleashed the curse that had been sealed within her since birth, Scarlet Wrath. The explosion of Scarlet Wrath devastated the entire region of Caelid and transformed it into a hellscape of red sand and mutated creatures. Radahn's brain was consumed by the disease, and the noble general became a mindless beast that still wanders the battlefield, devouring the corpses of fallen soldiers. Malenia collapsed into a deep coma, and one of her knights had to carry her away. The war ended in a stalemate, with a destroyed bleeding world, barely recognizable from what it once was. So, the higher power, known as the Greater Will, which had watched over this world, abandoned the demigods and turned away from them. And it is here, hundreds of years after this apocalypse, that you enter the story. When the great demigods fell, the Tarnished were called back to the world. Long before this, during the height of the Golden Order, Queen Marika's first husband, the warrior Godfrey, commanded a massive army. But once they had defeated every enemy of the Erdtree, Marika did something unexpected. She stripped them of the golden grace in their eyes and banished them from the lands between. They were forced to leave, sail across the sea, and fight and die in distant hostile lands. They were the first Tarnished. But Marika's plan was actually a contingency. She knew that outside the lands between, her exiled warriors and their descendants would grow stronger while remaining beyond the reach of the Golden Order. She promised them that after their deaths, she would eventually return the grace she had taken from them. And that is exactly what happened to you. Your death in a distant foreign land before the beginning of the game was not the end. After hundreds of years, Marika revived you through golden light and called you back. You are thrown into a world that has been reduced to ruins. Your only task is to find the fallen demigods, kill them, take the Great Runes from their hands, restore the shattered Elden Ring, and become what they were never able to become, the next Elden Lord. But the story Elden Ring tells you isn't simply about becoming the next Elden Lord. It is the story of a world that stopped functioning a very long time ago. If you enjoy lore videos like this, I'd really appreciate a like on the video and a subscription to the channel. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.